welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about extended breastfeeding, and we're just going to go over the pros and cons. Most people are told to breastfeed until at least 6 months old, and then if you breastfeed until 1 year old, then you can then switch them over to milk. So let me just start off by saying I think any breastfeeding is good. There are some women who aren't able to breastfeed. So for me, I'm still breastfeeding my 20-month-old toddler, and breastfeeding a toddler is way different than breastfeeding a newborn. Breastfeeding a newborn, they're little, and they aren't like super active and like squirming around and trying to like talk to you. Also, like once a kid starts teething, they also might like start biting. They just start biting more in general, but it can also then affect breastfeeding. Okay, so here's some of the things that I consider to be pros of extended breastfeeding. So one thing is that breastfeeding sort of like forces you to slow down. And I put this as a pro because it forces you to just like take a sec and like have a seat and like breathe and just be there, right? Now, if you have other kids running around, or if you have a newborn and a toddler that you're trying to breastfeed, it may not be like a relaxing slow down. Like it may be like, okay, let's get this done so we can like get on to the next thing, right? For me, myself, I tend to want to be like, okay, let's go on to the next. What are we doing now? And so for me, extended breastfeeding has helped me to sort of like slow down and have more one-on-one time with my kid where I'm just like very relaxed and he's like the only thing that I'm paying attention to during that time. The boost to the immune system is obviously a pro. That's one of the main like benefits to breastfeeding, is that the mother's immune system can then feed into the baby's immune system or the toddler's immune system, and that can help both mom and baby. So this one, some people might consider it to be a con. I consider it to be a pro. So I put my kid to sleep every night with breastfeeding. I know that some people say don't do that because then they rely on it and blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about that, so that's what I do. It's obviously very comforting, and so like my kid recently was sick, he had a fever, he didn't want to eat anything, he didn't want to drink anything, but he would continue to breastfeed and he continued to have at least the minimum number of diapers that he should have every day. So I knew he was okay and he was getting enough liquid, and sustenance because he was breastfeeding. And I don't know if he would have just like taken a bottle if he wasn't breastfeeding. I don't know how I would have handled it if he wasn't breastfeeding. So I was very thankful that we continued breastfeeding just because I had something that I could do effectively during that time in order to keep him hydrated and get him a little bit of calories. Okay, so I also have like some like middle category things. Like they're not really pros and they're not really cons, but they're worth stating, right? So one of the things is like sometimes people will like ask you if you're still breastfeeding, or like in a judgy way, basically. They'll be like, oh, is he still, right? Or they'll be like, how many teeth does he have? Are you guys still, right? So if that's a big deal for you, then you might want to just like be discreet about it if you also want to do extended breastfeeding. Once Henry turned like 1-ish, so for me and Henry, we never really did like breastfeeding in public because he's so distracted by everything all the time. He's like all over the place that if I tried to breastfeed in public, he would just pop off the boob and like look at people and smile like all the friggin' time, right? And I'm just sitting there like with my nip hanging out. So we didn't breastfeed in public very much. If I had to breastfeed him and we were out and about, I would go into my car, and turn it on so I could listen to music or have the AC on or whatever, and I would breastfeed him in my car. However, like if you want to do extended breastfeeding but you also want to avoid judgments, then you know, if you just want to be discreet about it, then that's okay. You know, not that you should have to, but like, for me, I would probably choose to avoid the confrontation, as long as my kid was like doing okay generally. That's just what works for us. Any moms that are doing extended breastfeeding and also are out and about and breastfeeding, like rock on. I think that's amazing. It's just not really workable for me and my kid. And then the other one that's like a middle, like not really a pro and not really a con, it's just a thing that is like, you know, the boobs get a little more wear and tear. So there's a lot of like when your milk comes in, the skin on your boobs stretches out a lot because they're full with milk, and then once your supply regulates, then it's not so much like stretching of the skin. Anyway, more wear and tear. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, so here's for the cons. So the first one is like toddlers are so much more squirmy. Like you can look up, I think it's called gymnastics, right? Like gymnastics while you're nursing. And like toddlers, while they're nursing, they will try and like play and like go do a whole thing while nursing on your boob. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you want to do extended breastfeeding, you're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that. Getting touched out as a mom is like really easy. Your kid wants to hold you all the time, and then, you know, your husband comes home and like everyone wants to snuggle with mom, right? And which is amazing. But it is also like sometimes you just need like a break, right? So sometimes when you're touched out, if you're nursing your toddler, they don't really care. They're not interested in you being touched out. So that's just another thing to know. So again, there's like, you know, some people will say like, oh, your kid will use it as a crutch, right? Or whatever. They have like these developmental debates. And I don't know what to say about that, except I'm not worried about it. I don't think that my kid is going to develop it as a crutch. I think that at this point he still needs it, and that him and I will know when he's ready to be done breastfeeding. And then at that point, then we'll stop. So that's my 2 cents on that. Another thing, I put it in the cons. I should have also put one in the pros though. Okay, so like when you're breastfeeding, your body, I guess, holds on to some of like the body fat, particularly like in your thighs, I guess. That's what my doctor told me. Like your butt and thighs hold on to some like body fat in order to be able to produce milk, I guess. And then that can sort of go away once you stop breastfeeding, I guess. So that's just something to know. I held on to quite a bit of weight until like 6 or 8 or 10 months postpartum. And then I started losing it, and I lost like a pound or 2 every month. And now I'm back down to my pre-pregnancy weight. And then I just recently started, you know, working out. So I don't feel like breastfeeding made me hold on to an extra 5 or 10 pounds. But it did for probably the first almost year. And then I think that after a year, once my kid was breastfeeding way less, then I was able to just lose the weight. So that's just me. Different people find that it works differently. I spoke with one mom recently who, like, once she started weaning her kid, she lost like, I think she said 70 pounds, right? So it just depends on the person. Breastfeeding could make you hold on to the weight, or another mom I know, she was losing weight too fast. She got like under 100 pounds. And so she had to start like taking weight gainer shakes. So, you know, it could be a pro or it could be a con, just depending on how your body responds to it and those hormonal changes that your body goes through postpartum and then while you're nursing. So obviously, I am a supporter of extended breastfeeding. That's what I'm doing with my kid. I also fully support moms who don't want to. So what I would say is it's a very personal decision. Everyone has to sort of judge that for themselves and be able to figure out what they should and shouldn't do. Obviously, I think that you know what's best and your kid knows what's best, and when either individual begins to feel like they aren't enjoying the relationship anymore that comes with the breastfeeding, then obviously that's a sign that it's time to wean. And no mom should feel like guilty if she wants to stop, basically. So that's my 2 cents on that. Just as a side note, I obviously fully support extended breastfeeding, but also I think about weaning like every week. I think about it. And, you know, I've watched YouTube videos on it, and I'm sort of creating a plan for once we decide that that's what we're going to do, then I sort of know like what route we're going to go. We'll probably do night weaning first, and then we'll wean the other ones, the other feedings off. So, all right, so thank you for watching this video, and feel free to check out the rest of my breastfeeding series, and don't forget to